Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to start talking about rigs, so let's get to it. Well, a rig, guys, is a sort of construction that we have here inside of Maya that allows us to control the geometry in an indirect way. In this case, we're going to be using these curves that we have right here to modify and to move around the geometry that they are attached to. This is a very simple rig. It's not a skin rig, actually. It's just a normal parent rig. We parented all the surfaces of our object onto the bones themselves, and then we're controlling the bones through something called constraints. There's really nothing you need to know about rigging right now. We're going to be focusing on animation, but one thing that you do need to know is that usually when you're animating, you don't animate directly on the curves. You're usually going to be handed something like this, which is called a rig, and you're going to be animating the curves right here, which are going to allow you to move the things around. And curves are supposed to be, like this one right here, thought out in such a way that you only have access to the channels that the rigger wants you to move. So in this case, for instance, we can only animate the X channel, and only until a certain point. As you can see, it stops at a certain angle, because that's just how this rig is designed. So whenever you get a rig, the first thing we need to do is we need to explore the rig a little bit just to know what it can do. So for instance, the biggest curve is usually the one that controls the most things. In this case, this one, the master control, will move their crane around or the arm around, and it will rotate the arm as well. If we want to, like, I don't know, attach this to a wall or to the ceiling, we can do so. We just need to rotate everything, position it properly, and then we can animate from there. The next thing, or the next curve that we have, is this one right here. And as you can see, we can only rotate on Y. So if I start moving this around, we only rotate on Y, and we can only rotate so far until this point where it hits, because otherwise we would get some sort of like overlap there that might look a little bit ugly. Then we have this other curve right here, this one, that allows me to rotate pretty much 360 degrees, which is great. Then we have this one that allows us to rotate the arm. Again, we have a limit on how far we can push the arm, otherwise we start getting some collision there. Same for this arm. We can push it all the way to a certain position, right about there. This one right here moves all of this thing very nicely. This one right here rotates this little like handle on the front. And then finally, these three guys will rotate on the X-axis, and then we'll open and close our crane. Perfect. Now, this crane does not have a material right now. If I check, all of the geometry has this Lambert 1 material. So I'm going to show you how to create a material for this. It's going to be a complete material. And it's actually very easy. We're going to go into the Arnold section. If you don't have Arnold turned on, don't worry. You're going to go into Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and you're going to look for MTOA, which is the plugin. MTOA is the Arnold plugin. You're just going to load it. I usually have this set as Outload because that's my preferred render engine when I'm working in Maya. And here on the Arnold tab, we're going to create a new shader. So on the Arnold options, you're going to go into, well, let me save this first. And then I'm going to go here into Arnold. I'm going to create an AI standard surface, which is this one right here. And we're going to call this M, as in material, underscore robot arm. And inside your source images folder, you're going to find another folder called robot arm, where all of the textures are going to be living. So I'm going to go here into the color first. Let's plug in the color file. And we're going to plug in here the robot arm folder. We're going to plug in the color. There we go. And then we're going to plug in, I believe it's the metalness. So we're going to do a file as well. And then this file is going to be the metalness. Now for the metalness, you need to do a couple of things. You're going to go here and you're going to say alpha is luminance. And you're going to change the sRGB to raw. Very important. Like that. Then we're going to do the roughness. So here, file. The roughness is going to be this roughness map that we have here. There we go. And we're going to insert, we're going to change this to raw as well. We're going to change this to alpha is luminance as well. Finally, we're going to go all the way down here to geometry. We're going to go into bump mapping. We're going to select bump mapping, a file. You're going to see that we have an extra file here, which is the bump 2D. We're going to change that as a tangent space normal because it's a normal map. And then on the file, we're going to insert the file that we have here, the robot arm normal. And I believe you also need to change this one to raw because it's just a normal color. See there? You can see that the material is looking nice over there. So now we're going to go select all by type geometry, right click, and I'm going to say assign existing material. And down here, I'm going to find this M robot arm. And if you press number 6, you should be able to see this. Now, to properly see the colors, we need to create a light setup. However, I'm not going to create the light setup on this scene because I want to keep this scene as clean as possible. And that means that we're only going to have the materials and the connections ready, but that's it. So I'm actually going to save the scene, save scene as, I'm going to call this robot arm ready. Robot arm rig, let's call it. So if you want to practice the creation of the material, you're going to grab the robot arm one. And if you want to just work with the rig, you're going to work on the other one. Now I'm going to create a new scene. And here's where the important part comes into place. Whenever we want to animate something, in this case, this robot arm, we're not going to be animating directly on the rig scene. Why not? Because if at any point during production, we want to modify or do any sort of change to the original rig, we want all of the animations that have been done with that rig to be updated with the new capabilities. And that means that instead of working directly on the source file, we're going to be referencing it. If you are familiar with working in After Effects, for instance, it's a very similar process. Whenever you create an After Effects scene, you're not working with all the assets. You're referencing the assets, and then you do what you have to do there within the software without modifying the original assets. So I'm going to go here into File, and I'm going to go into References, Create Reference. And I'm going to select this robot arm rig, and I'm going to say Reference. And what's going to happen is that we're going to get this thing right here with all the materials and everything. The same things that you had on your original scene, they're going to be present right here. So as you can see, our rig is looking very nice. The floor is a little bit big, but that's because of a setting that I changed here in Display Grid. You can just click this option box, Edit, Reset Settings, and Apply and Close. And now we're back to like normal size. I also moved my animation graph to the top here, just to make it different, but let's bring it back down. You can just like drag and drop it anywhere you want. Sometimes when I have my camera turned on, it obscures things, and that's why I move it up. So now you can see that the only thing that's different from this thing that we have here and the one that we opened before, the source scene, is that all of the elements here inside the outliner have this little blue crystal. So there's things that I can't do. For instance, I can't just delete things. See that? If I try to delete something, it gives me this warning. Says, hey, this is just, it's locked. Like you can't do anything. I can, of course, grab these things and move them around. I can animate and do whatever I want, but I won't be able to modify this. If I want to change this, if I want to do any sort of different thing with this element, I'm just going to go File, Reference Editor. And here in the Reference Editor, I can delete the reference, update the reference, do whatever I want. I'm going to show you real quick why referencing is so important. So let me save this, and let's call this Robot Arm Animation, just like that. I'm gonna open my original robot rig, this one right here. And now let's say for any reason I decide to make a couple of changes to the controls here. Maybe I want to like flatten these vertices out, like move this guy down, and this guy's like pull them up, right? Like something very silly, right? But it could happen to you. It could happen to the construction. Let's say, for instance, this curve right here. I'm going to go into curves. I'm going to rebuild the curve, and I'm going to change this from 1 to, let's say, 12. Okay, rebuild. So now this thing has 12 control vertices, as you can see there. And with 12 control vertices, it's going to be a little bit easier to create like funky shapes. So let's do like this sort of like cogwheel or something like that. Maybe the art director or another animator suggested this change and everyone said like, yeah, that looks good, that's good, let's work with that. If I save the scene now and I reopen my animation scene, you're gonna see now that the animation scene has that elements or those elements updated. And that means that even if I had animated all of these things before, even if I have done like movements and stuff, rotations, the changes would now be present here. I can, of course, change things here, like it is possible for me to change things, but if I change things here, they're not going to be changing on the source file and therefore will not apply to all the other animations. So imagine we're working on a studio and we're doing like 5 different scenes with this robot arm. We have one animator for each scene and we're all working, we're all doing our job. And then the rigger says, hey guys, I added a new controller that allows you to, I don't know, like open this little hatch door here if you want to. In that case, we would just need to update our rigs and whoever needs to use that new controller will be able to use it without affecting all the work that we did before. That's why the reference is so important. So now, just to finalize this, let's do a very quick animation. We're not going to do an animation with this robot arm just yet. Later on, we're going to do some mechanical things, but just to show you how all of this works, let's go to frame 1 and I'm going to select all of this elements right here, like all of my curves. I'm actually going to go select all by type NURBS curves. There we go. And I'm going to hit S. And then on frame 120, I'm also going to hit S. And then on frame 60, let's pose this thing. Let's start moving this thing around to create an interesting like effect. So maybe let's like move it like this. And I'm just going to grab all of this, guys, and open the claw up. Let's move it a little bit like this. And let's move it like back, like there. I'm gonna say select all by type, NURBS curves, hit S to add another keyframe. And now if I go to the first frame and I hit play, we're gonna get this effect. This just screen just like opening up and then going back into position. Super simple animation. It's not anything out of this world. It's just a very, very basic thing. But now let's take a look at rendering, because we have a very nice material. So I want to make sure that this thing looks nice on any situation. So I'm going to create a plane here. Let's call this GP, which is ground plane. And I'm going to go into Arnold, and I'm going to add a new light, which is going to be a sky dome light. We're going to be doing this quite a bit, so make sure that you understand this workflow. And here on the Arnold settings, I am going to go into the color options, and I'm going to add something called an HDR. Now, we don't have any HDRs. What are HDRs? HDRs, if you've taken our Maya Basics course, HDRs are these images that contain a lot of information inside of their image. They're a special format that has high dynamic range. So we're going to be able to get like very dark shadows and very bright colors, and we can capture that light information and project it into a scene to illuminate everything as if the object was there. So I'm going to go for like this urban options right here. Let's see if we can find some sort of like factory or something. I think that would be nice. Yeah, like this construction site is perfect. I'm just going to download these 2K. You're also going to find this one on your folder. Oh, actually I didn't want to open it. I just want to download. Is it downloading and opening at the same time? Let me check. Oh, it is. So I'm just gonna grab this, Control Cut. Let's go to our project. And on your source images, you're gonna find this one. So back in Maya, if you select this dome and you go into the color connection, you're gonna input an image. You're gonna input that specific image. And now we're gonna get this. I'm gonna save the scene real quick. And now if I go into Arnold and hit render, I should be able to see how this thing looks with all the materials and everything. And technically, we should see everything working nicely. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned is the normal map, but I'm hoping that this is gonna work fine. If not, it's probably just a setting that we need to adjust. Let's give it a couple of seconds here. There we go. And there we go. Look at how nice this thing looks. We can see the metal like refracting or bouncing the light back into the world. And yeah, the rest of the elements are working very, very nice. And if I were to scrub on the tile, I'm actually gonna go in here. This is an option that we have inside of Arnold, which is really cool. You can change this to GPU. The only thing is that you need to have an NVIDIA GPU. I have the 1080, as you can see here. And this is going to make this a little bit faster. So, yeah, you can see a little bit faster. So one thing I can do is if I scrub on the timeline, I'm going to be able to see how this thing looks throughout the time. So at the first frame right here, it looks like this. Very cool. And as I move forward, this is the animation that we're going to see. See how it's updating there on real time? Very cool, right? So, of course, it's not completely clean or anything, but at least I can get an idea of how this is going to look as a final animation. We're going to be talking about rendering animations shortly as well. So don't worry, I'm not going to show you just yet. But yeah, this is the main thing that we're going to be talking about rigs. Now, before we jump anywhere else, we are going to be using, and this is a disclaimer, we're going to be using rigs that we find online. So if you look here for Maya free rigs, there's a lot of rigs online that we can use. And this site right here, Rusty Animator, is a guy that compiles most of the free rigs that you can find. So I'm going to show you the ones that we're going to be using. We're going to be using this ones right here by Ugur Ulvi Yetiskin. I'm not sure from where this guy is. I'm imagining some sort of like a Northern Europe country, probably. And this guy has been around for a long time, and he has all of these rigs called the Ultimate rigs. These are great rigs. Even a very like low spec computer can run them because they're very light and they're very easy to work with, very easy to animate with, and we're gonna be using them throughout this course. So feel free to just drop an appreciation here for the guy, because we're gonna be using his rigs, of course. I cannot unfortunately share the rigs myself. You're gonna have to download them just due to the copyright things, but it's very easy. The first one we're going to be working with is this one right here called the Ultimate Tail, this one. So right here where it says Ultimate Tail, I'm just going to download this guy. and we're just going to download from here. Direct download. Okay, so that's one of the first ones we're going to be working with. If you check the folder, it says zip file or RAR file. You just open the archive, and this is the scene that we're going to be working with. We're going to be using this right here on our project, and you're gonna drop this into your scenes. The only thing about this, guys, is these are some very old rigs. We've been using them for a long time because they're great for teaching. And the issue with these rigs, as you can see, 2012, that's a long time ago. And as you can see, guys, they're in Maya binary. So one thing that we're gonna have to be careful about this rig is that we need to save the file as a Maya binary as well. You might find some errors. We're gonna talk about that shortly, but that's one of the rigs that we're gonna use, the Ultimate Tail. There's another one that we're gonna use, and this one is actually the one that we're gonna start with on the next video. This one is not an Ultimate rig. You're gonna look for this as follows. You're gonna look for JD Flour Sack, okay? And the JD Flour Sack is on Gumroad. The artist is called Joe Daniels, that's why JD. Feel free to donate if you want to donate a little bit. I already have this downloaded, but I'm gonna show you very quickly how to get this. So let's say 0 for now. I'm gonna say I want this. You write your email, whatever you're using. You get your content, and you're also gonna get a RAR file for this flour sack. As you can see, I have a couple of copies there because I've downloaded before. I am gonna open the archive as well. And this one has a couple of more files. Actually, this one is a whole Maya project. You can see all of the folder organization there with all the elements. We don't need all of them, so I'm gonna show you how to extract the things that we need. We're gonna go here into scenes, and from the scenes folder, we're just gonna drag the JD flour sack. There we go. And then from the source images, we're gonna grab all of this flour sack textures. And that's it. We don't need anything else from the archive. So now if we go into Maya, let's do Control S to save the scene. Let's open a new file. I can do the same thing I just did with the robot arm. File, create a reference, and we're gonna be referencing our very nice JD flour sack reference. These errors are very common. You're gonna get them frequently, and the reason you might get this is some of these rigs are actually very old, and they're using nodes, like old nodes from render elements, and we're not using them right now. So if I check this guy, for instance, if I select the geometry, which I would need to find right here, you're gonna see that this geometry is using like an old shader that's not there. You can see that the textures are missing. If this happens to you, very easy to fix. I'm just gonna go into Windows, Settings and Preferences. Usually I don't get this error. Usually the textures just like connect themselves because we uploaded where they're supposed to be. But if this happens, just go General Editors, and you're gonna go into File Path Editor. You're gonna see here that we're getting some issues. No problem. Just click here, Repath Files. I'm gonna tell this guy to look in the source images folder of our project, of course. So right here, set. I'm gonna repath. Did I not copy these guys where they're supposed to be? Oh, where are they? Weird. Let's open the archive real quick. There we go. Actually, no. This is the one that we need. Control C. Control B. This one, let's delete. So just make sure you, not source images, actually. I just need this guy's right here. There we go. So as you can see here on the image folders, we have a flour sack color and a flour sack normal map. It's just two textures. That's all we have. So now I should be able to repath the files. Let's say repath. Repath, I'm gonna say search subdirectories. I'm gonna say repath. There we go. Now we found them, and we have these very nice textures here. This issue that you're seeing here, that's the normal map. So I'm gonna go into the hypershade, go into my JD flour sack color, grab the normal map, and I'm gonna change this to raw. There we go. So now the flour sack looks completely normal, and we're ready to start. So I'm gonna stop the video right here, guys. Make sure to grab this rig. This is the one that we're gonna start working with. It's a simple rig before we jump into some more advanced stuff. And yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.